Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. I'm Mark Lynn. Coming up in the next hour, Defence Ministers of India and Kenya meet in New Delhi. India's Defence Minister terms the discussions as comprehensive and fruitful. India's Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari launches the world's first 100% ethanol-run Toyota Innova. The US and China hope to patch up differences as their commerce ministers meet in Beijing. North Korea calls for strengthening naval forces as South Korean and US Special Command troops conduct joint maritime drill. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh held bilateral talks with his Kenyan counterpart in India's national capital, New Delhi, earlier today. Aden Bare Duale, the Cabinet Secretary of Kenya's Ministry of Defence, was welcomed by Rajnath Singh with a guard of honour. This is the first and the highest level standalone political visit from Kenya since the new government assumed office in September last year. The visiting dignitary will visit the Indian shipyards and defence industries in the Indian port city of Goa, as well as he will be going to the southern city of Bengaluru. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh thanked Kenya for its support. And the Kenyan Defence Secretary, Aden Bare Duale, well,
India and Kenya, in particular, have always enjoyed close and friendly relations. Our collaborations in trade, economy, education, health, and people-to-people contacts have grown from strength to strength. I am happy to note that both our countries worked closely in the UN Security Council in 2021-22 as non-permanent members, and we thank Kenya for their support to the Indian candidature for the 2028-29 term also.
Well, the Kenyan Defence Secretary Aden Bare Duale welcomed the move to strengthen relations between India and Kenya.
When Prime Minister Modi visited our country in 2017, it was a historic visit. We want to acknowledge the support the Indian government continues to extend to Kenya and to thank you, Minister, through many fields. At the defense level, we have cooperated in the surveillance of the Indian Ocean maritime space. And I am sure this visit will extend more our bilateral relations between our two countries, but more so between our defense sector.
Kenya's Defence Secretary Aden Bare laid a wreath at the National War Memorial in the Indian capital city of New Delhi. He had arrived on Monday on a 3-day visit to India. This visit holds importance amid the growing cooperation between India and Kenya and is expected to open new avenues in strengthening defence ties between the two countries. He had earlier visited the War Memorial, and he had talks with India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh. Also, there is an MOU that has been signed between Goa shipyards as well as a maritime company in Kenya. The Kenyan side is keen on maritime cooperation. And Vishal Barristow has been covering that story for us. Vishal joins us now. Vishal, this is the first visit by a high representative of the Ruto government. How is India viewing the visit?
Well, a very good evening to you, Mark. In fact, we need to understand the strategic relations that India and Kenya enjoy. It's been a long time that we have had relations with them. In 60s, we developed establish diplomatic ties between the two countries. And the location of Kenya is very, very important because it is on the borders of Indian Ocean and it is gateway to East and Central Africa. Around 100,000 Indians or people of Indian origin, they all reside in Kenya. So Kenya is an important partner as far as Africa is concerned, and during this meeting between the two countries, the Defense Minister Rajnath Singh, the Raksha Mantri, and also the Defense Secretary, who is also heading a high-level delegation from Kenya, they have both signed a memorandum of understanding. The Goa shipyard is going to have an agreement with the Kenya shipyard, and they would be constructing ships and also developing further ideas. So this has been a very positive meeting between the two countries, and let me tell you that India has for long helped Kenya, and Kenya is an important partner as far as Africa is concerned. On this important occasion, Raksha Mantri also gifted 15 parachutes to Kenya, and also an advanced CT scan center in Kenya that was also gifted by India. Mark?
Yes, indeed, Vishal. And what is the potential then for collaboration in the maritime domain from the defense point of view?
Well, this is a very important question, Mark, because as I told you that Kenya is located at the border of Indian Ocean, so the maritime security is very, very important. In fact, thrice a year, India holds a meeting with Kenyan authorities, and the maritime security is discussed. And as far as the defense ties are concerned, both countries are trying to find out as to how and to what extent can they cooperate between the two countries, because they are already sharing important information as far as maritime security is concerned. And now with this important inking of the shipyards between the two countries, there would be construction of ships. And furthermore, India has also raised the voice of the global south, especially the African countries that have to be included in the G20 forum, and Prime Minister has made it very, very clear. So India is playing a role of friendly nation for Kenya, and at the same time Kenya also acknowledges and appreciates the role that India under the leadership of Prime Minister has been playing for Kenya.
Yes, indeed, Vishal. Thanks very much for joining us with those inputs. Vishal Baristow, our correspondent who had covered this story. And joining us for a discussion on this is Professor Ruchita Berry, a consultant on Africa at the Africa Center at the Manohar Parrikar Institute of Defense Studies and Analysis. Thank you, ma'am, for being with us. What is the importance of continued and more intensive engagement with the Global South?
Well, global, as India has pointed out, Prime Minister specifically had pointed out earlier this year, especially when it took over as the president of G20, that India is the voice of Global South. So obviously we need to engage with each and every part of the Global South. African countries are a very important part of the Global South, and therefore a visit from Kenya, which is an important regional partner, especially in the East African region, would be considered as important. And also during the current G20 presidency, India has asked for the inclusion of African Union as the 21st member of the G20. So therefore, engagement with the African countries is considered, especially a part of the important.
Right, indeed. And also the Prime Minister had highlighted the International Solar Alliance for the whole of Africa, the Big Cat Alliance, and also traditional medicine cooperation. These are clearly win-win, aren't they, when we look at the African continent?
Yes, definitely. See, clean energy has been a priority for the Global South for a long time now, and across the world. It's a global issue. The continuous climate change challenge is a problem, and therefore the Global South countries, in Africa in particular, are looking for renewable energy sources, and solar energy, and the International Solar Alliance launched by India is definitely a very important forum for cooperation between India and African countries. clean energy is the way of future. We have to reduce our dependence on hydrocarbons, and therefore the African countries, which are part of the sun region, the solar region between the tropics, form an important partner in that sense.
Absolutely. And also, on the One Earth, One Health and India's digital stack, which is now getting quite popular, these also can be replicated across Africa.
Yes, COVID pandemic particularly, brought the focus on health security all across the world, and more so in the global south. And India was considered as an important partner. India fought for the global south in the multilateral organizations for basically for pro-vaccine, for the global south. It's vaccine Maitri initiative, where it supplied vaccines to the countries in global south, was something which was noted by the countries in the global south, and
yes, indeed.
in Africa in particular. And the digital stack, you're right, that India's digital experimentations and implementations have been welcomed by the global south, and they would like to emulate Indian example, whether it is in terms of digital solutions for various things.
Absolutely. Now the government of President William Ruto has been in power for a year. The economy seems to be sustaining pretty high GDP rates, above 5%, and it looks like the Kenyan economy has plenty of potential. So in that respect also, cooperation with Kenya is important, because these are engines of growth.
Yes, Kenya is the hub of East Africa. It is the route to a gateway to East Africa, and so it is an important partner in the Indo-Pacific. Therefore, trade with Kenya would be a priority for India too. A number of Indian companies are already present there, and I'm sure, given the fact that it is a stable country, this would be welcomed by India. Any move by the Kenyan business enterprises to interact and increase its presence in India and vice versa would be something which has to be looked forward for in the future.
Indeed, and Kenya has also a very low carbon emissions, and hence, it is a good place to promote carbon credit related trade practices, which could be something that, the world is looking at in the future, because, after all, there are certain countries that are performing very well in terms of climate indicators and some which are not. And hence, the ones which are good performers should actually be honored in a sense. In this context, how would you look at, the possibility? You did talk about renewable energy and the Solar Alliance, but India too, looking towards moving in that direction, carbon neutral by 2070 and all that. Africa is the place where India should be cooperating on a large scale.
Yes, definitely India would like to have partnership with Kenya in this sphere. As I mentioned earlier, climate change has led us all to rethink our policies towards energy, and we are looking at a carbon-free world in future. Let's see how we progress towards that. But one thing is very clear, that we need to partner with countries from Africa, and those like Kenya, which have a low carbon emission level, and we need to partner with them. And it is also a country which is exploring in hydrocarbons in the recent year. It started producing, will be producing oil in the future. So the partnership goes at both levels. And
okay. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, Professor Ruchita Berry, Consultant Africa Center at the IDSA. Thanks very much for being with us. Still to come on DD India News Hour. India's Transport Minister unveils the world's first car to run entirely on ethanol. In some relief for the former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan, the Islamabad High Court has suspended his conviction in a corruption case. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. In a world first in the world, India's Road Transport and Highways Minister Nitin Gadkari, he unveiled a new fleet of ethanol-fueled vehicles, the Tata Innova Hi-Cross. It was officially launched today in New Delhi, and it paves the way for the introduction of more alternative-fueled cars. It's hoped that the fleet, which is 100% ethanol-fueled, will help to reduce India's carbon emissions. The Minister Nitin Gadkari said that the government is encouraging the manufacture of such vehicles.
कि इथेनॉल की इकोनॉमी जिस दिन 2 लाख करोड़ की बनेगी, उस दिन एग्रीकल्चर ग्रोथ रेट जो 12% है वो 20% तक पहुंचेगा। और हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी ने 120 डिस्ट्रिक्ट 500 ब्लॉक्स निकाले हैं, सोशली एजुकेशन हेल्थ सब में पिछड़े हुए हैं, उन क्षेत्र की इकोनॉमी बढ़ेगी, नए रोजगार निर्माण होंगे।
India's Information and Broadcasting Minister Anurag Singh Thakur on Tuesday announced that cooking gas price has been reduced by 200 rupees per cylinder. This initiative is a part of the Indian Prime Minister's Ujjwala scheme. It's aimed at providing liquefied petroleum gas connections to people living, to women especially, living below the poverty line. The Indian government has also approved over 7 million additional connections, which will take the total beneficiaries to more than 103 million.
ओणम और रक्षाबंधन के इस पावन अवसर पर प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी ने निर्णय लिया है कि 200 रुपया गैस सिलेंडर के दाम कम किए जाएंगे। सभी उपभोक्ताओं के लिए 200 रुपये दाम कम होंगे। तो मुझे कहते हुए प्रसन्नता है कि एक बार देश की लाखों बहनों के लिए फिर प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी ने बड़ा तोहफा दिया है कि 75 लाख बहनों के लिए उज्ज्वला गैस योजना के अंतर्गत उनको गैस कनेक्शन मिलेंगे। उनको 1 रुपया भी नहीं देना पड़ेगा, गैस कनेक्शन भी मुफ्त मिलेंगे, पहला सिलेंडर भी, पाइप भी, चूल्हा भी।
Let's take a look at other stories making news. The South Indian Harvest Festival of Onam is being celebrated all over today. The festivities have captivated all of India as people are celebrating by offering prayers, dressing up in colorful clothes and spending time with family. In a spectrum of cultural events, a group of women were seen dressed in their traditional finery in India's southern state of Kerala, and some were seen singing folk songs as well as dancing around beautiful floral art. Onam is a festival that originates in Kerala. And India's weather department has predicted heavy to very heavy rainfall in Assam, Meghalaya and Arunachal Pradesh in the northeast of the country for Tuesday. Severe rains have worsened the flood situation in Assam, affecting nearly 190,000 people across 17 districts. The Brahmaputra River in Dibrugarh district is flowing above the danger mark. It's expected to increase further. On the occasion of National Sports Day, the Sports and Youth Welfare Department of the state of Assam organized a cycle rally to promote Fit India. Now, cycling and walking activities held in the northeastern Indian state Assam focused on promoting indigenous sport among the people of the country. The Fit India program promotes healthy lifestyles and it aims to make India fit. London expanded its ultra-low emission zone on Tuesday to all boroughs in an attempt to discourage the usage of polluting vehicles from entering the city. Drivers who choose to cross that boundary with vehicles that don't meet these requirements will have to pay nearly $16 every day. Stuart Smith reports.
The centre of the city has had an ultra-low emission zone since 2019, but this policy means hundreds of thousands more may be susceptible to the charge. The mayor proposed the policy in order to reduce the harm of toxic air pollution, which researchers found was responsible for prematurely killing 4,000 Londoners a year. Those in opposition say it's unfair on those who require a car to move around and don't have the means to upgrade their vehicle or use public transport alternatives. It's turned into a massive political hot potato between the Conservative government and the opposition Labour Party. While the Conservatives run the country, Labour runs London, and the elected mayor Sadiq Khan says the government seems to be weaponising air pollution and climate change for political reasons. Outrage amongst some has resulted in hundreds of the new ULEZ cameras reportedly being vandalised or stolen ahead of the start date to prevent vehicle number plates being scanned and stop fines being issued. The mayor's office says it's not backing down, with some cameras getting armour plating to protect them. Stuart Smith in London, reporting for DD India.
Japan has received the green light from Washington to purchase more than $100 million worth of air-to-surface missiles. Tokyo had requested to buy up to 50 of the weapons following the procurement of more than 500 Tomahawk missiles in a similar arrangement with the United States. Chris Gilbert reports from Tokyo.
Well, Washington has approved the request from Tokyo for a $104 million deal to supply missiles that can be mounted to the Japan Self-Defense Force F-15 fighter jets. The US says that this is an important step to help what they call a major ally, secure their political and economic position in the Indo-Pacific. And securing that economic position is becoming a very profitable trade for the US, because before this $104 million deal, there was a $1.6 billion sale of Tomahawk missiles from the US to Japan, plus extra for the hardware to mount that to Japanese naval vessels. This all follows a decision from Tokyo to double its defense budget over the coming years. The first step has been done in that already to respond to security challenges, perceived security challenges that are rising in the Indo-Pacific region. It's also endowed itself with extra abilities in its new national security strategy, counter-strike abilities to attack enemy bases should the need arise. Japan, of course, is constitutionally a pacifist country. However, successive administrations with the US support have found workarounds to endow the self-defense forces in moves like this purchase to really improve, or as they say, enhance Japan's security in the Indo-Pacific. Chris Gilbert in Tokyo, reporting for DD India.
The Islamabad High Court has suspended former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan's conviction in a corruption case and has ordered his release. But it's still unclear what is next for the popular former leader.
Imran Khan has faced one crisis after another. He was arrested on corruption charges and given 3 years of imprisonment earlier this month. He was found guilty of unlawfully selling state gifts during his tenure as Prime Minister from 2018 to 2022. Pakistan's election body also barred him from contesting elections for 5 years. With the next poll due later this year, it's unclear now if he will be released, as there are other pending cases against him. The 70-year-old politician faces charges including abetment to murder, leaking state secrets, and orchestrating violent protests. Though Khan's legal team is optimistic.
We are very hopeful he would be released. So far he has not been arrested in any other case. We have not been informed that he is under arrest in any other case. If that is the case, he should be out very soon. We are all waiting for there is a procedural formality.
It is another legal win for Khan after the Balochistan High Court dismissed sedition charges against him on Monday. The former charismatic cricketer lost a parliamentary vote of confidence in April 2022 and had to step down. Since then, there has been political turmoil, and Khan's attempts to rally popular support have worsened relations with powerful military generals. Rahul Singh reports for DD India.
In an update on the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, the Russian Defense Ministry has termed its latest attack against Ukraine's aviation weapons and ammunition a successful one. While reports say that Ukraine launched strikes against Russian command posts and air defense systems, Ukraine armed forces say 26 combats have taken place between Russian and Ukrainian troops in the past 24 hours. Amid all this, Ukraine's defense minister says there was no fallout between his country and Western partners over military strategy in the ongoing counter-offensive.
I can absolutely 100% confirm that there is no conflict. These assumptions by the Western press are mistaken and invented. There is no conflict. There is working, friendly communication, systematic consultations, and such meetings as that of Commander-in-Chief Valery Zelensky are systematically taking place between him and his counterparts. He doesn't leave the territory of Ukraine, and regarding the communication, not everything can be trusted, even certain protected means of communication.
It's been more than 4 months since armed conflict broke out in Sudan between the National Army and the rival paramilitary forces. A humanitarian catastrophe has emerged in Khartoum and in Kordofan states as well as in the Darfur region. This conflict has badly impacted the security, health and economic situation, and there is no sign of any breakthrough to resolve the crisis. DD India's correspondent Naba Moinuddin reports from Sudan.
Hanan Rahamtallah is a mother of 4. She and her family normally live in Khartoum, but they were forced to flee 130 kilometers outside the Sudanese capital to Al Jazeera state after war broke out in April.
We live in very dire conditions. There are no beds, no food, and no medicine. Our kids don't have enough to eat. We want to return home. We want to return to our normal lives. We want the war to stop.
The war that broke out between Sudan's armed forces and the paramilitary rapid support forces has caused mass displacement and a humanitarian crisis. International agencies say they can't provide aid for those in need due to continued hostilities and unsafe humanitarian passages in both Darfur and Khartoum.
About 4.5 million people have fled war zones in Sudan since mid-April. Most have fled from Khartoum to central Sudan, about 100 kilometers away from the capital.
The United Nations say that about 1 million Sudanese have crossed into neighboring countries. The 4-month-long war has also hit the health system hard. 70% of hospitals aren't providing services due to the shelling, occupation by warring factions, and the lack of medicine. The conflict's aftermath, marked by hunger, disease, and extensive displacement, is putting the entire country at the brink of the collapse.
I came here in May. I miss Khartoum, I miss my house, and I miss all of the details. We lost everything, and we don't have anything here. This war must stop.
Sudan's army commander, General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, has gone to the coast city of Port Sudan for the first time since April to meet with the government. New talks in Jeddah are expected to be launched soon and could pave the way for permanent cessation and end the war, but it wouldn't immediately bring an end to the humanitarian crisis or bring families like Hanan Rahamtallah's home. Naba Moinuddin, reporting from Al Jazeera State in Sudan for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour, the US Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo meets the Chinese Premier Li Qiang in Beijing. North Korean leader Kim Jongun calls for strengthening of naval forces amid maritime drills between the US and South Korea.
Welcome to Jaipur.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Here's a recap of our top stories. The defense ministers of India and Kenya meet in New Delhi. They deepen trade, economic and education ties. India's Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari launches the world's first 100% ethanol-run Toyota Innova. North Korea calls for strengthening of naval forces after joint US ROK maritime drill. The US and Chinese officials are holding a series of fresh talks on contentious trade issues during a three-day visit to Beijing by the US Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo. Raimondo met with the Chinese Premier Li Qiang on Tuesday.
In a pivotal moment for US and China, US Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo met China's Premier Li Qiang in Beijing on Tuesday. This is a second full day of meetings with top Chinese leaders on balancing business ties and national security concerns. Gina Raimondo earlier met China's Vice Premier Hu Lifeng. Earlier, the Chinese Minister of Commerce Wang Wentao and Gina Raimondo met to exchange views on bilateral trade. It was a significant meeting with a wide-reaching effect, with Wang stressing the importance of the two countries' relations to the rest of the world.
I am willing to work with you to create a good policy environment for cooperation between the business sectors of both countries and to promote the steady and predictable development of bilateral trade and investment so as to inject new impetus into the global economic recovery.
Raimondo also stressed the importance of bilateral trade and economic relations.
But as you say, the vast majority of our trade and investment relationship does not involve national security concerns. And in this regard, I'm committed to promoting trade and investment in those areas that are in our mutual best interest.
The UK Foreign Minister will be in China on Wednesday for the first time in 5 years. The trip by James Cleverley signals a promising shift in the bilateral relations following years of strained ties. Cleverley will meet with his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi and said that it's important to engage with the world's second largest economy, especially on climate change, economic instability and nuclear proliferation. His trip to China was delayed from earlier in the year after the mysterious disappearance of the former Chinese Foreign Minister Qin Gang. Now, Ollie Barrett, DD India's correspondent, joins us from London. Ollie, why the renewed interest in China?
Well, Mark, certainly since Rishi Sunak became the new UK Prime Minister, his administration has been attempting to improve ties with Beijing. You mentioned that previously postponed visit from James Cleverley. We also had a major speech from James Cleverley back in April when he talked about the need, in his view, to engage with Beijing on issues like climate change. So we knew that a trip was going to be coming up pretty soon when it could be arranged. It also reflects some of those ongoing discussions between American officials and Chinese officials. Certainly London is trying to get a bit more in step with Washington, it seems, at the moment when it comes to relations with China. As I say, Rishi Sunak is a Prime Minister that's been trying to tread a line here which does involve engagement with one of the world's biggest economies. It's a difficult path to tread for the UK government, but James Cleverley's visit is all part of that.
Indeed, you said one of the world's largest economies, but whatever democracy exists in Hong Kong is a British legacy. I mean, we know that China is not a democracy. So how concerned is Britain about the crackdown on free speech and civil liberties?
It's going to be on the agenda. We are told that very clearly by the UK Foreign Office, the FCDO, saying that the Foreign Secretary will challenge China, in the words of the Foreign Office, on the erosion of autonomy, rights and freedoms in Hong Kong under the Beijing-imposed national security law. The Foreign Office says that the Foreign Secretary will also raise human rights concerns over Xinjiang and Tibet as well. We're also told by the Foreign Office that other UK interests, including sanctions on British MPs, will be raised. The issue of Chinese support for Russia's military campaign in Ukraine, we are told by the Foreign Office, will be on the agenda. So there will be some issues that are going to be raised by James Cleverley that might lead to some difficult conversations on this trip. But certainly Hong Kong is among them, and the UK also pointing, as I say, to areas in which it believes it can cooperate and collaborate more with China, such as climate change and environmental issues.
You did mention in your first answer that ever since Rishi Sunak took office, so are there any Sinophiles within the Tory party?
There are some, but there are also some significant China hawks within the party too. The Conservatives are divided on exactly how to approach the issue of China and UK relations with Beijing, and that is, as I say, why it's a difficult path for the Prime Minister to tread here. Don't forget as well that if Liz Truss had remained UK Prime Minister for longer than she was able to, then the UK's policy on China would currently be in a very different place from where it is right now. So there are differing views within the Conservative Party about how to approach China, and so many Conservative MPs will be watching James Cleverley's visit very closely indeed to see what comes out of it.
Ollie Barrett, thanks very much. March the 4th, 2024, that's the day when Donald Trump's federal trial on allegations that he tried to overturn the 2020 presidential election is slated to begin. And that means that the former president of the United States, he's also the current Republican 2024 frontrunner, will be juggling a schedule full of court cases as well as campaigning. DD India's Tony Waterman has more from Texas.
This trial would start in the middle of the Republican presidential primaries and the day before Super Tuesday. That is when more than a dozen states will vote on potential presidential nominees. Now, Trump's team had asked for the trial to be pushed back to April of 2026, arguing that they needed the time to review all 13 million pages of evidence that's been turned over so far. But Judge Tanya Chutkan refused, saying that a March 4th start date was adequate time to prepare. She said Trump will have to prioritize the trial and that she won't be making any changes to the schedule for professional obligations. One thing she did do, though, was check in with the judge overseeing Trump's hush money case in Manhattan, because there is likely to be overlap. That trial, in which the former president faces 34 charges, is scheduled to start in late March. Now, Trump took to social media to lambast the trial date, calling it election interference and saying that he will appeal. But the truth is, he is fighting 91 charges across 4 cases that could all go to trial before Election Day in November of 2024. Besides the elections case in D.C., there's again that hush money case in New York, the mishandling of classified documents in Florida, that trial slated to start next May, and the Georgia elections case where Trump and 18 co-defendants have been charged with trying to overturn the election results in that state. The prosecutor there wants that trial to start this coming October, setting up a very busy year of court cases and presidential campaigning for Donald Trump. Tony Waterman in Austin, Texas, reporting for DD India.
Well, as the United States witnessed a spree of mass shootings in the past few days in Florida and Boston, the White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre made it clear that white supremacy has no place in America. A 21-year-old white gunman shot and killed 3 black people at a Dollar General store in Jacksonville, Florida on Saturday. The shooter later died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Even as we continue searching for answers, we must say clearly and forcefully that white supremacy has no place in America. As the President said in his statement yesterday, we must refuse to live in a country where black families going to the store or black students going to school live in fear of being gunned down because of the color of their skin. And we must continue to do all we can to keep guns out of dangerous hands.
In yet another shooting incident in the U.S., a faculty member was dead and a person was in custody after a shooting that shut down the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill on Monday for 3 hours and sparked urgent warnings for students to take shelter. Students and staff, they barricaded themselves in dorms, classrooms, and the library area for much of the afternoon, and the area elementary schools held students past the normal dismissal time. After roughly 3 hours of lockdown, the all clear was given. Classes started once again, which had started a week ago, but the shooting led to terror and an eerie quiet during what is usually a joyous and exciting time on the campus. Video showed a large number of police vehicles at the campus with their emergency lights flashing. At times, people walked out of the nearby buildings in a single file with their arms in the air.
UNC police were notified of shots being fired in Cottle Laboratories on our campus. The suspect was eventually apprehended and is now in custody. I'm grieved to report that one of our faculty members was killed in this shooting. This loss is devastating, and the shooting damages the trust and safety that we so often take for granted in our campus community.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has visited the country's Navy command and called for radically modernizing its weapons and equipment. He was accompanied by his wife Ri Sol-ju and daughter Kim Ju-ae. In his speech to mark Navy Day, the North Korean leader denounced the leaders of the United States, Japan, and South Korea as gang bosses. Kim also criticized the increased presence of the United States in the region. North Korea says that it's been building its ballistic missile program to counter Western aggression. Meanwhile, Special Command troops from the US and South Korea have held joint maritime infiltration training. The troops trained as part of the Ulchi Freedom Shield exercises. About 100 soldiers from the two nations took part in the drill. South Korea said this year that the exercises are being held at the largest scale ever and are designed to enhance the joint response to North Korea's nuclear and missile threats. The French President Emmanuel Macron, in a speech to diplomats, said that France's ambassador to Niger will stay in the country despite pressure from leaders of a recent coup. Macron reiterated support for Niger's President Mohamed Bazoum and said that his decision not to officially resign despite being ousted in a coup was courageous. Let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. India's neighbor Sri Lanka is facing a severe drought. Weather forecasters have predicted that there will be no rains till October. Authorities are therefore estimating around 75,000 acres of paddy loss, threatening the country's summer rice harvest. After a consistent decline in the working age population and national birth rate, authorities in eastern China have decided to award newlywed couples 1,000 yuan in cash. If the bride is 25 years or younger, China has already adopted a series of subsidies for childcare, fertility and education for couples who have children. Ethiopian artists, journalists and folk dancers are upset and putting pressure on the government to roll back its plan to tear down Fendika, which is a center for art, music and poetry. Renowned dancer and choreographer Melaku Bele, who joined the Fendika Club 10 years ago, along with lovers of Ethiopian dance music, is shocked with the decision and wants the place to be spared. What's still to come here on DD India News Hour? Tropical storm Idalia lashes Western Cuba and it crawls towards Florida's Gulf Coast. Toyota suspends operations in all of its factories in Japan due to a system failure. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Mark Lynn. Another wave of extreme heat has hit Phoenix, Arizona in the United States, with temperatures rising to 116 degrees Fahrenheit or 46.6 degrees Celsius. Here's the report.
Phoenix, Arizona is facing another round of scorching summer heat, with temperatures hitting 116 degrees Fahrenheit on Monday. It's coming after a 31-day streak of temperatures above 100 degrees Fahrenheit over the month of July. But a break from those sweltering highs seemed to be over. Visitors to the city like Alex Arriaga from Alabama have been taken aback by the heat's intensity.
It's a very dry heat. And if I had to really explain it to someone that wasn't from here, they probably would never want to come and visit. But it's got great scenery. If you're not from here, it's almost like they just built a city inside of a desert, which really is what it is. So.
Alex Young, the lead meteorologist at the National Weather Service's Phoenix office, said this summer is rivaling the hottest on record in 2020.
In terms of what we know with the period of record, it's on this heat over the summer, especially July and August, is unprecedented.
Young said that compared to 2020, the heat this summer is more concentrated across a shorter time frame.
The Earth is warming, we know that to be true. To what extent it has in terms of our day-to-day weather, maybe not so much, but the things that we see in terms of the data is how things are trending over time, and things are trending warmer and with more extreme events, kind of like what we've seen this summer with the heat wave.
Residents in low-lying areas along the Gulf Coast in Florida are bracing for the impact of tropical storm Idalia. The storm system is expected to become a hurricane in the coming days.
Tropical storm Idalia was expected to strengthen into a major hurricane before making landfall on Florida's Gulf Coast on Tuesday, according to the National Hurricane Center. The storm churned past Western Cuba on Monday, giving Americans a preview of what's to come. Homes were flooded in towns south of Havana, and thousands of people were evacuated. Satellite animations show the storm's growing intensity. Its current northerly track put some 14 million Floridians under hurricane and tropical storm warning.
And this is an area that we're highlighting the danger of life-threatening inundation from storm surge. So the circulation of Idalia is going to push water from the Gulf of Mexico up into places like Charlotte Harbor, Tampa Bay, in the Big Bend region, where the storm surge is very, very sensitive here.
Floridians were seen on Monday making preparations ahead of Idalia's landfall. People in Tampa were seen filling up sandbags at a distribution point. School districts across the region cancelled classes starting on Monday afternoon. Tampa International Airport said it would suspend commercial operations starting Tuesday. At a gas station in Gainesville, people gathered emergency supplies. Some were seen filling up jerry cans of fuel, while things like bottled water quickly sold out.
Auto giant Toyota Motor Corp has suspended operations at all 14 of its factories in Japan due to a system failure. The world's biggest selling automaker said a glitch prevented them from ordering components, but they are not sure why. Now, sales ground to a halt last year as well when one of its suppliers was hit by a cyber attack and Toyota had to use a backup network, although a spokesperson has said that it's not likely to be the same cause this time. The International Monetary Fund's chief, Kristalina Georgieva, is heading for an Asia tour, and this is from Wednesday. She's going to be visiting China and then Indonesia as well as India. And now, as the head of a major United Nations financial agency, she will first meet Beijing's top leaders and likely discuss China's faltering economy. The economic recovery is slow there and fragile real estate sector. Georgieva will then head to the ASEAN Leaders Summit in Indonesia, then onto the Group of 20 Summit in New Delhi. This is from September 8th to 10th. Last month, the IMF raised its outlook for the world economy given continued resilience. You're watching DD India News Hour. Time now for all the sports news. And for that, here's Deepika.
Thanks and good evening, Mark. Today, India is celebrating National Sports Day. So let's get our viewers how India is celebrating National Sports Day, because it is celebrated every year on the 29th of August as National Sports Day to commemorate the birth anniversary of hockey legend Major Dhyan Chand. Our next report brings you all that you need to know about this special day.
India celebrates National Sports Day on 29th August to commemorate the birth anniversary of hockey legend Major Dhyan Chand. The day is also dedicated to the nation's sports heroes and champions, honoring their contribution and dedication towards bringing laurels to the country. In recognition of his unparalleled contributions to the realm of sports, the Indian government declared his birthday as National Sports Day in 2012. With the aim to inspire generations to come. This decision was also focused on promoting sports and physical fitness among the people in the country. Dhyan Chand, the hockey wizard, is considered equal to Pele in football and Bradman in cricket. It is said that when he used to take hockey to the ground, the ball used to stick to his stick as if he was playing hockey with a magic stick. Even today, no player has been able to reach the records made by Dhyan Chand in hockey. Born in Allahabad on 29th August 1905, which is now known as Prayagraj, Major Dhyan Chand was the greatest Indian hockey player. Before the Second World War, Dhyan Chand played a key role in getting India gold medals in hockey in 3 consecutive Olympics in 1928 Amsterdam, 1932 Los Angeles and 1936 Berlin. He was the top scorer for India in 1928 Amsterdam Olympic Games as he scored 14 goals. Major Dhyan Chand played his last match in the year 1948. He was awarded the Padma Bhushan in 1956. His birthday was declared as the National Sports Day of India. The highest sports honor in India, Khel Ratna, has been named after the hockey wizard. With the aim to raise awareness about the values of sports, discipline, perseverance, sportsmanship, teamwork, and to encourage the public in large to take up sports and make it an integral part of lives while emphasizing on the importance of being fit and healthy, India celebrates the National Sports Day in recognition of unparalleled contributions of sportspersons with the aim to inspire generations to come. This decision was also focused on promoting sports and physical fitness among the people in the country. Sports Desk, DD India.
On the occasion of National Sports Day, Union Sports Minister Anurag Singh Thakur launched the third edition of the Fit India Quiz, among other initiatives, at an event at Jawaharlal Nehru Stadium in New Delhi on Tuesday. Anurag Singh Thakur felicitated Indian athletes, lauding their remarkable performance at the World Athletics Championship. He also congratulated all the athletes for upholding the tricolour with great pride. Speaking at the national sports event, Anurag Singh Thakur said there is a long list of achievements by Indian athletes.
सच्चे राष्ट्रभक्त भी थे, देश के लिए खेलना चाहते थे और हर बार ओलंपिक्स में तिरंगे की आन बान शान को बरकरार रखने का काम मेजर ध्यानचंद की टीम ने किया है। देश भर में राष्ट्रीय खेल उत्सव ही नहीं मनाते, हम उस महान खिलाड़ी, जैसे मैंने कहा मेजर ध्यानचंद जी हो, वर्तमान के खिलाड़ी हो, पूर्व के खिलाड़ी हो, उन सबको ही सम्मानित और याद करने का प्रयास करते हैं।
So this is just the beginning for Indian sports. That's all from the world of sports. Mark, back to you.
Thanks a lot, Deepika. Well, that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. But let's know your thoughts on the day, about the news of the day. And you can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Mark Lynn from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.